the boating here with Adrian Thompson. Dreaming on his own because no agencies want him. No talent scouts is switching us. Slavers and from live on baiting head often. So it's just another video with Adrian Thompson. Screaming all alone. His medication is wrong. The producers say he's stylish to a favor this bomb. Cocaine in his nostrils again. Just another morning here with Adrian Thompson. Screaming on his own. The radio wants him. No TV stations calling up from Maine to the Bronx and Maine to Wisconsin and back. So it's just another video with Adrian Thompson. Screaming on his home because no radio wants him. No journalists quote him in their papers and columns. The mail to the Scotsman and back.
You can start cars with the whiskey on my breath. Nothing is certain except Texas and death. Daddy told me, baby, girl, the world is a mess, but it's coming to an end. So, words on my sweater with some wine on my dress. Now I'ma do a lot. Fuck it, I am a mess. Only thing that's certain now is Texas and death, but it's coming to an end. So, you can start cars with the whiskey on my breath. Nothing is certain except taxes and death. Daddy told me, baby girl, the world is a mess, but it's coming to an end. So, birds on my sweater and some wine on my dress. Now I'ma do a line, 'cause fuck it, I am a mess. Only thing that's certain now is taxes and death, but it's coming to an end. So,
Ba 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 do, ba 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 bo. Ladies and gents and everything in between, welcome. It's Friday night once more. It's 7:30. It's time to join yours truly as we once again try to make sense of the senseless. Pull up a pew, grab yourself that beer, open that cheeky bottle of Pinot that's been looking at you ever since you got home from work. Just uncork that bad boy, or roll yourself a bifter and settle in, you cheeky tinkers. As I once more try to bring my darkness to your light. What's going on out there? Everybody good? Everybody happy? Everybody doing as well as could be expected? Should we get the chat up? Let's get the chat. Here we go. What's up, people? What's up, Diz? What's up, Mojo Sabian? Richard Marsden, Steve Martin's in the house again. Jim Speak. What's up, peeps? Hope you're all good. Hope you're warm, mostly. Warmer than I am, sat here with the heaters on. Out here, it's proper winter out here today. I hope it warms up in here soon, because honestly, like I don't even know how cold it is. It's been like 2 degrees all day. I picked my son up from school earlier, and he's like, "Well, we have to stay back for a bit, Daddy." And I was like, "Why? It's fucking freezing." It's like, why? What are we staying back for? It's like the last day of term. And so he's like, the school are doing, Christmas carols in the playground. And I was like, yeah, but we're not. Like, fuck them. We're not doing that, so why do we have to hang around for it? He's like, no, but you stay, for them, and then everyone sings the carols together. And I'm like, I reckon even if actual Jesus was here in this, I don't think he would stick around for this. I don't think he would be up for this British winter. So he's a Middle Eastern guy. I don't think he would have stuck around for a British winter any longer than was absolutely necessary. Like, I think if it was Jesus, if it was this time of year, he'd be like, fuck this, it's my birthday. All right? I say we go to Spain for the weekend. Who's with me? Like, I reckon that would be Jesus' vibe. Because it is colder than a witch's tit out there. It's unacceptable. It is what it is. Nobody sang along, by the way. Nobody. I'm going to take my jumper off. As it's so, the heaters are actually kicking in now. Nobody sang along to these Christmas carols. Literally not one person. Just the choir and the kids. Up the front. We're all staring at them. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody's looking, really. Nobody's engaged. Like, I did stand up for a few years. Okay? And I've had bad gigs. That might shock you. I've had the odd bad gig. But this was, I looked at that lot. I looked at the audience, the mums and dads stood outside in the cold. 80 parents, probably about 80, stood there in silence, clutching like the carols, itinerary pamphlet thing, the program, staring emotionlessly at these 8 kids who were supposed to be singing at us. That's what was happening. That was a tough gig that I witnessed. Didn't look like a school choir Christmas performance, I'll tell you what it looked like. It looked like, with, all the straight-faced, emotionless parents, 80 of them, looking at the frozen kids just still to the choir in front of, it looked more like a memorial for 8 kids who died on a boat somewhere, and we were just all like looking at it, just, okay, that was more of the vibe than it being some sort of celebratory, happy Christmas occasion. That's what it felt like. Anyway, what's been going on this week? Should we talk about news, politics, dystopia, all of the usual stuff? Leapshin is in the chat going like, who cares about your kids caroling? Get down to business, you bampot. What on earth is a bampot? Am I going to regret asking that? Maybe we park that one for the Q&A later, guys. Which, by the way, not to endlessly promote this stuff, but on a Friday night we do the podcast. I talk shit. We have a bit of back and forth with the live chat. That's from like 7:30 to 8:30. And then from 8:30 till like 9 o'clock or just after, we break it down then, guys, don't we? We have the lock-in, where it's just Q&A, just us talking, just bouncing off one another. You can ask me whatever. I can just freestyle it. So yeah, that's coming up in about an hour's time. So yeah, let's talk about all things newsy, shall we? What's been happening? Anybody in the chat got any stories that we should be ripping and roasting and ridiculing and UK-wise? What's been going on UK-wise first? Let's talk about that. What's been happening in the UK politically, domestically, reportedly, allegedly? We had Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. He's announced that Sue Gray is going to get a peerage in the Christmas honours. So that's nice. She does the Sue Gray report, didn't she? And that contributed to the downfall of possibly the worst Prime Minister of the modern era, right? And then she becomes chief of staff for the Labour Party, like after the election. But she leaves that role pretty promptly after, bumping antlers or bumping heads, loggerheads with somebody else in, upper ranks of Labour. But in leaving the cabinet, in leaving the upper circle of the Labour Party, she's exited out the door sweetly. And as a deal sweetener, she is given this peerage. Right? Like, why do we still tolerate this? Like, it's obviously not like, oh, and thanks for your amazing service. Thanks for the great job that you did. Like, it's obviously a deal sweetener. Why do we put up with this? Why? We just keep this thing going. These peerages, House of Lords, damehoods, baronies. I mean, Keir Starmer said, didn't he? Keir Starmer said when he was going for the leadership, when he was first constructing Labour's policies, he said he was going to reform the House of Lords, didn't he? He said that. And now where are we? Now where are we with that pledge, with that goal, that aspiration, with that manifesto thingy? Where is that now? Not only is there basically no sign of that happening whatsoever, it's just not going to happen. But also, we are seeing peerages being doled out for more friends, quite obviously as some sort of golden parachute arrangement. I mean, they say, don't they? They say that you get more conservative with age, don't they? But I don't think I was expecting to see, a full-on tub-thumping Labour leader committing to upending the system. We've got to reform the House of Lords. We absolutely have to do it. We've got to do something about that age. I don't think I was expecting to see a tub-thumping Labour leader commit to that, pledge to that, only to get into the system and then to just not only not reform it, but just crack on with it, with the status quo, and do nothing and enjoy the system as it is. Like, it's like, I don't know if you've ever had a friend that's a bit like this, like, sometimes when you're young, you make friends like this. You have like a friend who's, an anti-royal, anti-capitalist, Antifa friend called Anthony, right? And Anthony chews your fucking ear off in the party, in the house party, in the kitchen at 3 a.m. about the evils of the banks and the banks control everything, right? And then you don't see him for a little bit. Then you catch up with him a different time. Maybe you bump into him at a tube stop or something, or at a friend's birthday in a couple of years. The next time you see him, he's begging you to apply for a job in Barclays' commodities analysis team, because if you get hired into Barclays, he'll get the £2,000 commission for bringing you in there. Like, he's completely changed. Like, what the fuck happened to you, Anthony? Like, Starmer's a bit of an anomaly in some respects. Because a lot of people do get more conservative with age. But a lot of people get more radicalised, don't they? Like, I reckon since 2016, everybody has become more radicalised, haven't they? They've become more desperate, more frenetic, more pissed off with the corruption on the other team, more impatient, more hectic, more vocal, more lefty and socialist and radicalised is what many, many people on the left have become. Meanwhile, Starmer was actually kind of that before, and he's just dialed it down and diluted it over the same period that everyone else has become. Like, I reckon Keir Starmer is the only man in Britain to have become de-radicalised in the last 8 years. But of course, it's not just Labour, is it, with these peerages, guys? The opposition also get to nominate, don't they? whoever is the leader of the opposition, which at the moment is Kemi Badenoch. Cheers, by the way. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch also gets to nominate people for peerages. So, step forward. Hero to free speech. Nepotism's Toby Young, guys. Woo! Yeah! Can we get a picture of Toby up? Let's have a look at him. Look at him. Here we go. Look at that handsome bastard. That handsome, happy. Look how happy he looks. He looks so happy in every picture. Every picture is like this. He looks like somebody's literally just pissed on his chips. He's starving hungry and someone's just gone to town on his McDonald's fries. So, yeah. He's in line for a peerage, apparently. Celebrity beneficiary of nepotism, Toby Young. Toby's father, just in case you don't know the story around this. Toby's father was Baron Young of Dartington. And so the story goes. Toby Young was not going to be invited to study at Oxford University. Thanks to his exam results. He was academically not up to the level where he was going to get invited to a particular college in Oxford University. I think that's accurate. I think I'm remembering that right. And so his daddy, Baron Young of Dartington, picked up the phone, called them, and asked them that, like, as a favour, because I'm Baron Young, and probably because I went to private school with you, and we're all involved in business together, and networks, and nepotism, etc., etc., would you mind if Toby came along after all? Is it okay if Toby still comes to university, to Oxford, even though he's not qualified? And he's probably, possibly, definitely pushing somebody else out of that classroom, taking a space. Who didn't get the space because Toby Young's dad made that call? So yeah, Toby Young's dad calls up Oxford University, and as a favour, they let Toby Young in. And that's why he is where he is today, guys. Because he was shit. But his dad fixed it for him anyway, right? So, I mean, it's sort of inspiring, really, isn't it, in a way? It's an inspiring tale of social mobility. In a weird way, isn't it? You know, because here was a young man who didn't have the advantages of impressive intellect and academia. He wasn't fortunate enough. He wasn't blessed or privileged enough to have that just, you know, in the toolkit. Other people are born with it. It's their privilege. He wasn't. He was robbed of certain opportunities just by the luck of lottery, of life. But he didn't let that hold him back, guys. He didn't let that hold him back. And thanks to the recognition of somebody else saw him. Somebody else saw his potential, dear listeners, dear reviewers, on a Friday night. Somebody else saw his potential and they wanted to see some inclusivity. And yes, admittedly, it was his father seeing his potential, wishing that he was smarter, and wanting to see his own son included at Oxford University in this particular prestigious college. It was that. But thanks to his old man, he too, Toby Young, was able to rub shoulders with those other smarter kids. It was a victory for diversity, I think. Incidentally, if you want a funny read, like a really funny read, definitely check out Toby Young's article that he wrote about his own stag weekend. Which is so unintentionally hilarious. It's gold. It's like, I think it's supposed to be a sort of, you know, a reflective lifestyle kind of piece in The Spectator. I think that's the vibe that he's sort of, you know, hi, I'm Toby, and this is my story. This is one of my stories. This is a thing that happened to me, you know? I think that's the vibe that he's going for. But basically, it's about how he had his stag do coming up. You know, and he's sort of half arranged this, and is, you know, pretty standard thing. Like, he's Toby Young. He's the stag. He's going to get married. He's got the best man over here. Then he's got all of his mates or whatever. But, like, pretty much all of his mates pied him off. Pretty much all of them. I think it was like five out of like 9. Just, yeah, I'm not fun. Including the best man. Even the best man was like, oh, I don't know about this. Yeah. Just pied him off. And it's not mentioned in the piece, right? It's, you know, it's definitely not the vibe of the piece. It's not confirmed in there or even suggested, if I'm honest with you. But I really like the idea that, like, I came away with this idea that, like, I hope that they all still went, though. Like, all of his mates, I hope they all still, like, got together and went, like, without it. Like, I hope what happened is that, you know, his friends all universally concluded, like, in a breakout chat, in a different WhatsApp chat. I hope they all concluded together they all fucking hate him and they pied him off. But then they all still went away for the weekend for an Oliver Reed-style binge-off. Going go-karting, getting wrecked, axe throwing, and strippers. I hope they did that. Like, the sort of opposite of a stag weekend, in a way. You know, like, because a stag weekend is a sort of, you know, it's your bros, it's your mates. You know, you're celebrating, ultimately, you know, on a foundational level, you're celebrating that there is an impending union. Things coming together. You're getting married soon, Toby. That's love. There's unity there. Let's celebrate that with a few beers and a couple of bags. Right? But I like the idea that this was the opposite of a stag weekend. This was celebrating you parting company with Toby. There's like 9 guys in a pub knocking back Jaeger bombs going like, I can't believe we got rid of him. This is the best weekend ever. This shit is like a divorce party. Fuck a wedding. But yeah. Kemi Badenoch has nominated Toby Young for a peerage. So he will likely go to the House of Lords now. Lord Young. Maybe he'll be Baron Young the second, or, you know, whatever. Entry into the House of Lords for Toby Young. How about that shit? Still waiting for confirmation to hear on whether or not it was necessary for his father to make the call first to allow him into the House of Lords. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that. More on that story as it develops. And it's funny, man. Like, I was ranting about social mobility a few weeks ago, and somebody left this stinky comment, and it was like, you know, why do you always go on about social mobility? Like, it's there if you want it. It's there if you want it. All you got to do is just work hard. It's not difficult, is it? You bloody lefties. Always banging on about, yes, yeah, bloody social mobility. And I was like, well, yeah, because it's important. You know? It's important economically, productivity-wise, to give people something to shoot for. Or even just the mere possibility that it might be possible. It might happen for them if they work hard. I think I was like, right. I mean, it just comes off as though, you know, you want a better deal yourself. You want a nicer lifestyle yourself. But, like, that's what you're complaining about. You just want something better for you. I was like, no. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. When I'm complaining about wanting to address social mobility, when I talk about social mobility, I actually mean it in the opposite direction. Like, I want to be the first activist content creator that campaigns solely to make rich people fucking broke. That's the social mobility I'm on about. Join me in my campaign. Vote Thompson. Make them fucking cry. Sounds good, doesn't it? That little slogan. Make them fucking cry. Keep coming out with it. Every election, every referendum, every Tory leadership, local elections. Just make them fucking cry. I'm going to keep doing that as well until, you know, I build up such a profile for myself that I get elected, right? I'll be a local MP. I will be a thought leader or something. And then, do you know what I'm going to do? Then I'm going to pivot like Starmer. You know, you think I'm going to bring down the system from the inside. I'm going to pivot like Keir. Then you're going to see me rolling by in my Bentley. And you're going to be like, I thought he was on ours. Oh, man. I'm bringing it down from the inside until I'm not. What else has been going on this week, guys? What other stories have been bubbling up into the periphery? Farage flew to Florida to I'll start that one again, shall I? Farage flew to Florida to ferociously fillet this fascist twat, Elon Musk. A lot of people have been saying we should start calling him President Musk. You know, and then President Musk and his VP, Donald Trump. You know, which I think would be, I think that's fun. You know, I quite like that. And that'd be quite good, quite effective in terms of campaigning. Like President Musk, Donald Trump is not really the big cheat. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where you got to head them, is like in the ego. Because they're narcissists, right? If you can frame shit in that way, you know, where like Musk is in charge, it's Musk who has the big platform, the global information platform that can make or break people and control messaging. It's Musk who is having meetings with geopolitical and just domestic political leaders. It's him that's doing that stuff, right? If you make Trump feel like he is inferior to him, like he's second fiddle, you know, then probably something will kick off. Like probably those two will combust, I would have thought. But it's interesting though, isn't it? Because it's like, you know, here I was talking about Starmer campaigning on doing certain things, and then when he's in power, he doesn't do them. You know, he's kind of co-opted by the system. The machinations kind of get control of him. But it's also true of Donald Trump. But Donald Trump doesn't really get the same shit for it, you know? Like Donald Trump's whole thing was, you know, he's going to drain the swamp, wasn't it? Down with the elites. It's all rigged. The whole system is rigged. All the agencies are working against us. It's the elites. Drain the swamp. But as soon as he got elected the first time, literally the first week that he was in the White House, I think all of his cabinet were millionaires. And a bunch of them were like Goldman Sachs alumni. Shit. It's like at least Starmer took his time to be turned, to be co-opted, to smoothen out the radical edges. At least Starmer started off like a fire-breathing, royal-bashing radical and gradually become more unimpressive and shit. Trump literally stepped off the stage. He was like, drain the swamp, drain the swamp. And then he caught a golf cart to the White House and refilled the same swamp immediately. Didn't even stop for a fucking Big Mac. Elsewhere in Newsland, I don't know if you guys saw it. but GB News, loss-making, cash-strapped, advertiser boycotted. GB News has begun shedding its talent. Guys, the cost-cutting is real. They've got rid of Eamon Holmes' sidekick, that lady, because apparently she's too woke. They got rid of I know they've given Jacob Rees-Mogg like a pay cut, haven't they? They've said he's like reduced hours, he won't be on there so much, which I don't know how we are going to do without that natural broadcasting talent that is Jacob Rees-Mogg. Not in the least bit wooden and awkward on camera, natural broadcaster. I mean, look who's talking, right? I know, but I've said this before. I think we've talked about Mogg before on here, haven't we? And I've been like, you know, I never want to come off as like arrogant, you know, or cunty or like full of myself. But the one thing I will like happily pat myself on the back for is I'll say it now, guys. You may disagree, but personally, I think I might be a better presenter than Jacob Rees-Mogg. I'm just going to say that. I'm fine with some self-appraisal going on in that area. So, Eamon Holmes' sidekick, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Patrick Christie's walked off air abruptly. Still don't know really what that's about. And this, of course, follows Lawrence Fox was let go last year or earlier this year. The cosplay Calvin guy, what do they call him? He's got a nickname as well, hasn't he? What's that fucking guy's name? Altar Mitty, isn't it? Because Walter Mitty is the fantasist. He's a cosplay vicar. Altar Mitty. I thought it was fucking great. So they're all gone as well. Dan Wootton also. He was one of the first sort of like architects. I assume a key shareholder of GB News. He's gone. And, you know, more recently, more alarmingly, you know, if your heart is in that station, as of course mine is, I don't know if you've caught this, they have cruelly and wokely, if you don't mind my saying so, wokely cancelled free speech warrior and the people's prick, Mark Dolan. Guys, he's toast now. It's, I mean, I'm going to be shedding some tears about Mark Dolan. I've met Mark Dolan a few times at like open mic nights, at comedy nights, before he went crazy. And I know people who still know him. And they say he's not like that. Like, the guy that he is on TV is not Mark Dolan. That is basically a character that he does to get the checks in from GBD. I'm just like, in some ways that's worse. Like, at least if he was that, like, weird or fascist or, you know, angry. Do you remember when he like, didn't he light a cigarette on the thing? No, he cut up a mask, didn't he? Live on air on GB News in protest at the mask wearing or whatever. At least if he was genuinely that batshit, you'd be like, well, you know, they're your beliefs, I guess. But saying like, oh, he's not really like that, it's like, you know, it's like, well, then that just means he's shilling. You know, like, what even is that? Who even is he? How do you know he's not that, rather than him pretending that he's the character that he pretends to be when he meets you? How do you fucking know? Anyway, how are we doing for time? Have we got time for a weird news story? We do, don't we? It's only 8 o'clock. Should we jump in? We'll just jump straight into one. Now, emotionally deaded and dedicated viewers will recall that we normally go through the news, you know, we dance around the dystopia. And then once we've had our fill of politics, current affairs, ridiculousness, then we try our best to lighten the mood with a little news story, don't we? It's very much the "and finally" thing that you'll be familiar with from regular news shows, okay? It's when they step through all of the horrible news stories and then round off with a thing like they'll, the whole bulletin will be something like, they'll tell you that there's a new variant of COVID that's super infectious and very deadly. Then you explain how we're on the brink of nuclear war. Then the far right have won some election in Western Europe. Then PJ and Duncan announced that they got a new album coming out. Just terrible news stories. And then finally, you update people on, an uplifting feel-good thing, like a tiger. A tiger was raised by sheep, and it's turned out all right so far. So that's the vibe of this last segment, this second half of the show. Except as it is a show that is rooted in, emotional deflation, in depression, in disappointment. Obviously, it is the opposite of that, right? So, and finally, actually leaves you spiraling. That's what, a lot of comedians, a lot of satirists, they like to kind of uplift your mood, elicit laughter, improve things, leave you on a lighter note when you leave the comedy club or close off your Apple podcast. I do something a bit different. I flip it and then leave you in a terrible mood, devastated with no hope. Anyway. So this is the opposite of a, normal and finally thing. It is to uplifting what Toby Young is to social mobility. Or a good stag night, for that matter. Or what Keir Starmer is to bringing down the system. You get the idea. So, tonight's weird news story is... just quickly, actually, before we jump into it, because we have got time, we're all right. How likely do you think it could be that I could try to switch, to pivot, a la King Starmer? Why am I calling him King Starmer? What a horrible Freudian slip. But anyway, as we were talking about him, pivoting or relaxing or becoming more conservative with age or whatever, how likely do you think it is that I could try to switch? Because I know I was laughing about rolling by in my Bentley earlier, post-pivot. But do you think I could, go opposite on some think tanks, on reform, maybe? Do you think I could put myself forward, to some of these people and go, look, you guys love a conversion story, don't you? When we're talking about Neanderthal crossing the floor, he was originally a Labour councillor, then he became Tory. Douglas Carswell was originally a Conservative. He became UKIP. Former Labour or Tory types who've seen the light. It's a conversion story. You guys love that shit. Well, you allegedly paid Neanderthal £100,000 to defect to reform. So, how about it? I'm not saying that I'm Lee Anderson. I'm not as high profile as he is. I'm sure that there isn't the political capital to be gained by having me see the light. But, if you paid him 100, I've got an all right following. The podcast is doing all right. All I'm saying, 10 grand. You could pay me 10 grand. If you pay me £10,000 to start putting out content where I start saying I can kind of see your point, do you think they would go for it? If I pitched it like that to them? And then what I would do is I would record all of the calls, all of the meetings, and then I would take the money and I would blow it on billboards, exposing them led by donkeys, that sort of level of subterfuge and Machiavellian cuntery. Do you think that would work, dear listeners, people in the chat? How's that shit for bringing down the system from the inside? Anyway, tonight's weird news story, guys. Tonight's weird news story is from Euronews.com. A lot of times we do American stuff, don't we? Americana. Gun stories, drugs, fentanyl, Trump, all of that stuff. Tonight we're going Euro. Occasionally there are some weird stories that happen in Europe also. Euronews.com. Let me see if I can get it up on the screen for you. Here we go. German woman convicted of murdering her doppelganger in an attempt to fake her own death is tonight's weird news story. German woman convicted of murdering her doppelganger in an attempt to fake her own death. A woman in Germany killed her lookalike in a crime that's been dubbed the doppelganger murder. A 25-year-old woman and a 26-year-old man were sentenced to life in prison in a German court on Thursday for the murder of the woman's lookalike. Wow. I mean, we all get jealous, don't we? We all get, do we think that's what it was? Is that what happened here? You know, it's like when two women wear the same dress to a wedding or a engagement do or something, birthday party, and then they both see that they're wearing the same outfit and they kind of get a bit shitty about it, a little bit jealous. Maybe I've heard of that happening before. But maybe like this is like that, but it's with your actual face. It's like, it's not just a dress that it's your face. You can't change your face. You're both stuck like, so the anger goes up a level, moves up a gear, gets a bit murdery. Maybe it's like that. I don't know. So she murders her own lookalike. And what we can playfully conclude is a new low for self-loathing. She murders her, it says, in a scheme to fake her own death. According to the court, the Iraqi-German woman named only as Shahraban K, who, as I understand it, are supporting the Chili Peppers on their European tour. That was a cheap joke. That's terrible, Aid. You could do better. Shahraban K. I mean, it's quite a specific name, isn't it? According to the court, the Iraqi-German woman was named only as Shahraban K. Like, it's like only as that. Like, it's good there's some anonymity to it, only as Shahraban. But I don't think it would take much to, find an Iraqi-German woman with the first name Shahraban and the second, initial K. I don't think. Is that really hiding? Is that, hiding her? Is it? I don't know. Anyway, Shahraban K wanted to go into hiding due to family conflicts, and she wanted to fake her own death. She went onto social media to search for a doppelganger. Didn't know you could do that. And arranged to meet a 23-year-old woman whom she then killed with the help of an acquaintance. Wow. The trial lasted 11 months and more than 50 days of hearings were needed. The court ruled the crime to be particularly serious, which makes it unlikely that the sentence will be suspended after 15 years, a common occurrence in Germany. Well, yeah. So, what's happened here? So she goes onto Facebook or Snapchat or something, and she finds herself a doppelganger, a twin, somebody who looks eerily like her. Which I suppose if it was me, if I were in a similar set of circumstances and I had to find somebody who I guess I would have to hope that Paul Giamatti had been punched in the mouth that week. It says, handing down the sentence on Thursday, the presiding judge in the city of Ingolstadt, good old German name for a city, that, isn't it? Ingolstadt. Handing down a sentence on Thursday, the presiding judge in the city of Ingolstadt described the murder as a disturbing act. Prosecutors say the victim was sounded out on social media in August 2022 and told she would receive a free beauty treatment. If it sounds too good to be true, guys, it's... she was then picked up by Shahraban K and her male acquaintance, Keir K, to be brought to the fake appointment. Once they had picked her up, the pair brought the victim to a wooded area and stabbed her 56 times. Okay. It says the victim's body was then placed in Shahraban K's car where her parents discovered it and thought it was their daughter's. So the plan worked, right? the plan worked. She goes and finds this doppelganger, woman who looks eerily like her. She lures her into the car. They drive her into the woodland. They murder her, stick the thing in the corpse in the thing, and even the woman's own parents are fooled into thinking that this is her. It says, after an investigation, the corpse's true identity was discovered. According to German media reports, Sharaban K originated from a Yazidi community in northern Iraq. And it may have been motivated to... she may have been motivated to fake her own death after her marriage broke down. Right. I mean... how you go from being so upset at the end of your marriage to going out and murdering someone who looks just like you is, I mean, most people don't really talk about this much. Most of the time, actually, both people are quite happy when the marriage is over. It's like both parties are like, yeah, it's done. There's a great Louis C.K. thing where he says, if two people were in love and then they got divorced, that would be so sad, or that would be really horrible, or it would be a really sad story. But he's like, but that has happened literally 0 times. And it's like, there's always somebody is like delighted that it's over. And anyway, I mean, some people are actually happy when their friends' marriages begin, like Toby Young's friends. Toby Young's friends are like, yeah, you go off, get married. Oh, we probably won't see you much anymore, will we? Okay. See you later, Tobes. All the best with it. But mostly when, marriages collapse, both parties are, already pretty fed up. But this bitch's husband must have just gone like, I can't take this anymore. I can't, I'm over. It's done. And then what happens then, right, is like she blames herself for it. And so then she self-loathes about it. And then she kills herself for it. But it's like the doppelganger. Like, could it be that dark and psychological? If it is like that, I bet the husband has a massive dick. I bet that's... I bet he's a fire cat in the sack or something. There's something going on there. He's just incredible in bed with a massive penis. And he's breaking up with her and she just can't fucking take it. I mean, look, this is a sad story. I'm not mocking what happened. I'm just, doing what we do on this show. It is a sad story. It sounds devastating, but also I can guarantee you absolutely that somewhere out there in the city of Ingolstadt, there is a very, very confident man walking around, kind of proud of all this. I can guarantee you it. Swinging his dick around at the damage that he did to this latterly murdery woman. She has also been convicted of attempted incitement to murder. The court found that she had hired a hitman to kill her brother-in-law as well. So the husband's brother, although the murder did not end up taking place. Jesus fucking Christ. Bitch is bad news. And she wonders why the family fell out with her. Like, is that... the whole family were onto her. Like, we're onto you, you're bad news, love. And she's just like, yeah, this is not going to end well for me. I gotta kill these people. I gotta get away. I mean, I suppose the thing with this is, right, how are we doing for time? Are we all right? Yeah, we're good. I suppose the thing with this is, like, let's say that the family situation is really fucked up. Let's say that she did want to, for understandable reasons, like erase herself from the husband, from the family, the brother-in-law, or, whatever. Like, how does whatever is troubling you when you're part of that family, how does that contrast with the trouble that you're in now? Do you know what I mean? Like, even if you say, well, I just didn't ever want to be found by them, because they're a horrible family, because they're evil. It's like, fucking hello, bitch. You just fucking stabbed this innocent lady 56 times in a wooded area. Like, maybe evil is subjective. What do you think, Sharaban? And also, the other thing is, you know, if the goal was to get away from the family, then it's like, you know, was it really worth the risk of getting caught, you know, to get away from it? Because now you're on a life stretch. Now your name's in the news. Now you're confined into this one space. Like, at least before you had the freedom, Sharaban. At least before you could leave the family and go out and commit a murder. You had that freedom. Now you're just in lockdown, stuck in this one prison for 15 years. And she's like, you know, I just wanted to get away from them. You're like, well, how's that working out for you now? And then you're like, smash cut to her in the fucking visitation room. This same nightmare family come in and sit down opposite me. She's like, how did you find me? I was trying to get away from you. How did you find me? They're like, yeah, it's pretty easy, actually. We had a Google alert set up for your first name. That sprung up. And then we just came down here and told the guards that we are family. And they let us straight. Oh, my God. They let you straight in? Really? Yeah. Yeah, it's piss easy to get in here. Absolute piece of piss. Easiest entry ever. I mean, honestly, Toby Young wouldn't even need to phone his dad to get him in. All right, guys. That's it for the podcast, for the main section. It's 8:20. What we're going to do now is we're going to wind down into I was going to say into the lockdown. That's not the word I'm looking for. What am I looking for? Lock in. That's it. But if you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for tuning in. And I will look forward to putting out an alternative paper review every day next week. No, actually, I'm not going to do one next week, am I? It's Christmas. Fuck my entire life. I'll do one on Monday, and then I'll probably knock it on the head for a few days. And yes, I'll also be back doing a live show next Friday night. Probably won't get to do a midweek one next week, unfortunately. Because yeah, Christmas, you know, kids running around the house going crazy. I don't know, maybe I will. Maybe I'll write one and like pre-record it. But yeah, anyway, for now, let's wrap it up here for the podcast bit. I'm going to stick around and we're going to do a lock-in. We'll do a little bit of Q&A. And yeah, until next time, keep it booge, keep it binfluencer, and we're out this motherfucker. All right, guys. Let's see how we can flip over to our little lock-in thing. Here we go. Is this going to work? Here we go. I don't know why. It gives me like a nice little buzz going on here. I'm just going to stop recording. Continue streaming. There we go. Right. I've been really shit tonight, like looking at the chat, so forgive me. Right, okay, so Diz is saying the Leapskin question from earlier. That was a proper early on, wasn't it? And I can turn the other camera off now. There we go. Yeah, so Leapshin was asking if anyone ever like gives me weird looks in the when I'm doing the paper reviews in the morning, shouting into my phone. Mojo Sabian said something about Samsung, didn't you? But I'm an Apple guy. I'm an iPhone guy. But yes, people do not so much give me funny looks, but they definitely turn around and you know, to see what's going on. Because why would you not? Like, if you're in a public park and some, like, you know, middle-aged guy who's hanging out by himself in a skate park, or sometimes not even in the skate park, you know, just walking around down the pathways, and I'm walking along, like, literally shouting at my phone, why would you not look at that? That is weird behavior. Even I understand that it's weird behavior, but I also feel like, did I talk about this on the last lock-in? I think I did, where I said, like, if you don't do that, though, if you are self-conscious and you do wind it in, and you are fearful or self-conscious, or like, basically what happens is the rich kids who can afford the private studios with all the acoustics and soundproofing, they're the ones whose channels take off, or They're the ones that get snapped up to do whatever because they're able to express themselves freely and put personality across and to project when they're talking. So I always say to my missus says a similar thing. Where she's like, well, you know, so maybe you're just going to have to accept that you can't be in your cabin shouting. And I'm like, I will not accept that. Because if I accept that, then all the stuff goes to the rich kids. So fuck them. Sarah Davies says, hope your daughter is feeling better now. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, she is. Both kids are back to full health. It was a weird week last week. So my daughter came down with something horrible, like stomach, abdominal cramps. Neither me nor my missus got it, whatever it was. But then, yeah, a couple of days later, my son came down with it. He's still on antibiotics, but we don't really know what it was. But both of them were, yeah. Both of them ended up at, like, my daughter went to A&E 2 days in a row, and my son was, I had to take him to the local, like, thingy centre for health. Zero says, you get by with your personality and your wit. Thank you. But I always, do you know what? I always feel like if I didn't project and enunciate and, you know, I don't know what the word is, but if I wasn't so expressionate when I talk and shout, I suppose the insecurity there is that I would feel like people were going to switch off, like they would be bored. You know, like even this, I feel like, you know, we're talking, it's back and forth. I'm not really shouting anymore the way that I would do in a normal, you know, podcast bit. And I worry that it's more, I worry that it's more mundane, more boring. And people will switch off and fall asleep and, you know. Blue Badger's in the house. What's up, Blue Badge? What's up, Double B? Blue Badger 88. Sarah says, I'm gutted I can't support the channel financially, but being on disability benefits, it's tough. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry, Sarah. It's all good. It's all love. I'm in a very fortunate position, which is, you know, I have a pretty good job in the daytime, which I enjoy, and my team are great, and it pays the bills. So really, like, doing this stuff is more like I want it to eventually become a thing that is my job, if that makes sense. But like for now, like just growing it is all that matters. I don't mind if people are in a certain situation they can't afford it. Like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Mojo says, I dare you, Aid, to do a newspaper review whilst wearing a straitjacket. I think, do you know what? Like, Mojo, in all seriousness, I did dabble with the idea. It's not that, but it's kind of in the same world of taking a tripod out with me, putting the phone in the tripod so it can like look up at me, and then like order in some fake cigarettes and a bottle of vodka that would have water in it. And I would, like, as I'm doing the paper review, I would basically look like a homeless guy slugging back vodka on a park bench, in the park, on the bench, as though I'm like ranting to myself. And then I would like cut and edit it with like randoms, like just turning around, staring at me. So it's like you are watching the rantings of an actual like hobo. And I like that idea, but I've just not got round to it. And I also feel like in order to make that work, I would have to basically dress like a hobo taking my son into school. So it's a bit like, I don't know if I could embarrass him like that. Maybe I'd take a change of clothes and do it. Politics Social. Gray's in the house. Gray has entered the chat. Put your phone in my tripod, lovely boy, he says. Diz says brown paper bag aid. Yes, straight up brown bagging it, girl. Alex says, I love you, Aid. You're so down to earth. I watch your paper review every day. Big fan of Politics Social. And Tan is awesome. Yes, yeah, we're a good bunch, I think. And that's very kind of you to say. I do a good job of pretending that I'm down to earth, but secretly, you know, my aspirations sit firmly within the make money. Like, basically become the elected Labour leader, abandon all of my pledges, make a shit ton of cash and go on a speaking tour. That's where I'm headed. What about you? See me rolling on by in that Bentley. Who else have we got? Russell Cannon has sauntered in. We've got Zero saying, I liked you immediately. I see that there's a bit of projection, but that isn't part of it. I've told all my friends about your channel, so you may get 2 extra subs. That's nice, thank you. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit because I'm sure that I've missed some bits on the chat while I was ranting earlier. Should I go right up to the top? Why not? Who have we got? Sorry, I'm just reading. Dead air. This is cracking content. I bet you're happy that you've stuck around for it. People talking about Diane Morgan. Is her show back on? She's got like 2 or 3 shows, hasn't she? Where she's in Motherland, which she's amazing in. Like, I proper roared with laughter at her, like, rocking up to the kids. Is it a kids' music concert or something? And she turns up absolutely fucking hammered and spikes the punch, and all the mums get drunk or something. Like, she's great in that. She's great in Philomena Kunk. What was the other thing I saw her in? I saw her in something. I love her. I think she's great. I tell you what, though, I also love Sharon Horgan. Sharon Horgan and Phoebe Waller-Bridge are like such beacons of great, like, funny women, hilarious women. I just want to see more and more and more of them. Tackleberry says, dead air, but still better than GB News. There you go. Do you know what? I was thinking, as they're sacking all of their, winding down a lot of their presenters, what would it take for somebody like me to go up to them and go like, look, you have a terrible reputation, okay? The advertisers are leaving you. It's hard to make money. You don't want to keep going back to Paul Marshall and asking for more cash to keep you afloat. You're having to hemorrhage your talent. So why don't we solve these problems? Like, you were paying... How much were they paying Mog? It was like 200 grand a year or some shit. I'll do it for like 70 grand a year. I'd do a show on there. And I would be the face of liberal GB News to balance it. Just for a bit of balance. Can we have a fire-breathing Europhile on there who talks about, rejoining the EU, rips the shit out of the Tories, talks about the urgent need for proportional representation, why we need to regulate the press, including the TV studio that I'm literally in while I'm presenting for them. I'll do it for 70. Do you think they would do that? In a similar way to how RT used to. Some people see James O'Brien as a sort of equivalent of this on LBC, because for a long time LBC had a lot of, right-wing or centre-right presenters and very little of a left-leaning footprint. But now I think you can make the case that I think it's fairly evenly split. But on RT it used to be, it's Russian propaganda, right? But then you would have a couple of like lefties here and there. Card-carrying old-school socialists, or Blairite lefties. And the idea was to left-wash, I guess would be a way of describing it, to sort of sanitize this like pro-Russia Putin propaganda by giving it some credibility by putting this guy on there. Do you think, is there an opportunity for a shameless, money-hungry, left-leaning rant artist? Is there an opening there on GB News? And here's a question for you. How pilloried, how mauled would I get if I did sign a contract with them? It was like, all right, guys, it's been fun. I'm going to GB News, though. I reckon I would be pilloried. I'd be ostracized. People would be like, what the fuck are you doing? I loved your podcast when it was on YouTube. Is it really, are you that desperate for that money that you would sacrifice all the credibility, the integrity in a bonfire for that? Check. That's sad, 8. That's what that is. Jonathan Pye was sponsored by RT for a short while, says Mojo Sabian. Yeah, he was. I always forget that. Do you know Ian Dunt used to go on RT also? I mean, I will say this, like, way back in the day, I've just got to plug in my laptop. Hold on. There we go. Back in the day, I think when I guess I must have been about 24, 25, so quite a long time ago, I used to go on the RT website and read news stories on there because I genuinely thought, like, this is news from, like, external to Fleet Street. This is news from, like, other places that actually hold power to account. You know, if the UK does do something dodgy, shady, you know, I kind of want to know about it. I don't care who tells me about it. I would like to know. So I didn't hate RT for their content, but now I'm sort of, you know, a little bit too long in the tooth to believe the naive idea that you can go to RT for your news and basically not end up conditioned with a pro-Putin or, like, Putin-adjacent mindset. Because basically what they will do, nobody likes to think that they could be brainwashed, but it, like, basically anyone can be. You go on RT, there is an interesting article, you read that, then you see a few headlines from other pieces, and just gradually over the space of 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, it gradually settles in. And people don't want to believe that they can be drawn in or gradually conditioned in that way, but they absolutely can. That is basically what happens with Fleet Street. Every day you walk past the headlines in your 24-hour garage or your little, you know, cigarette shop on the corner. You cast a glance. You don't even have to buy the paper. All you have to do is walk past it and see the headlines saying, you know, Labour's appointment of Sue Gray is, you know, chumocracy, or you know, the Kate photo is real, and like it just sinks in. And even if you don't look at the newspaper, like the radio that you listen to on the way into, you know, the site that you're working on or the office that you work at, they talk about it all, so it still sinks in. And even if those don't, you aren't exposed to those, like maybe your friend down the pub is exposed to those and tells you these things. So that's why I always make a big deal out of it. It's like it starts with that communication layer. I had a really interesting chat actually yesterday. I didn't promote it at all tonight, but I'm on Sunday lunch Sunday roast. God, what's wrong with me today? The Sunday roast with Alex from Political X, and I can't remember her fucking name now. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, this something is wrong with my brain today. Liz. Oh, I can't remember her surname. Liz something. But anyway, there was 3 of us, and it's going out on Sunday on the Sunday roast channel. And I was saying, you know, like, a lot of people talk about why it's important to be on GB News, to guest there, to guest on RT, to guest on this show, Talk TV, whatever. And it is. But what you're trying to achieve there is, like, balance. You're trying to reset the narrative. And actually, if all of these fucking institutions and organizations were reined in with a regulator with teeth, you wouldn't even fucking need to, because the regulator would come down from up here. You're trying to approach it from down here by guesting on these things. They give you a £200 check for being the appearance fee. You're trying to change the narrative here. You need a regulator to do it industrially. So I was saying, like, you know, we're trying to achieve the same goal, you and I, to this Liz lady. But I was like, I don't think it achieves anything when it's like a left-leaning voice going on something as wholesale right as GB News. But if they paid me 70 grand to host my own show, maybe it would. I don't know. Politics Social says, I keep calling it spit roast. I'm sure you do, Gray. I'm sure you do. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it, with you? Mojo Sabian says, now there's a real political commentator. Yes, he knows his stuff. I mean, look, he's an academic. He's a historian. He knows his shit. What am I? I am a former skater, piss-taking stand-up. That's what I know. I know that and a bit of hip-hop. So, you know, yes, Alex is good. Yes, he knows his stuff. But could he name, off the cuff, all of Tupac's 4 albums that he released while he was still alive? And the first 2 after he was murdered? Could he name that? No, I bet he couldn't. I bet he feels fucking stupid now, doesn't he? And that's why I'll never be hired by GB News. Anyway, what's with all the straight up support here now? Like, Bullywag says you're Kool-Aid. Sarah Davies says you're a good guy, eh? It's nice. I mean, I'm taking the piss. I'm not, you know. It's very nice of you to say so, but I'm good. I'm totally at peace with where I sit in the politics content landscape. I think everyone offers different things. I think Supertansky stuff is incredible, and I think it's her personality that comes across and really sells it. She's so snarky and acidic, and then Graham has got like a lifetime of like traveling and socialism to him, and Alex from Political X, he knows his stuff academically. There's so many people that Josh is like, if you don't follow Josh from the movement forward, go and seek him out, because he knows his stuff. He is, you know, do you know when people used to say this about Keir Starmer, like, you know, he's surgical, he just knows his shit, and I get that feeling about Josh, is just he fucking knows what he's talking about. He's pragmatic, he's methodical, and he's one of these people who I wish I was, which is like, you know, I was talking about this earlier, like, I feel like I need to project. I feel like I need to enunciate and over-exaggerate and gesture. He is effortlessly engaging to listen to with, like, none of that. He doesn't over-emphasize. He just speaks about things intellectually, and it is arresting when he talks. So he brings that to the table. Everyone brings something different, and I love it. I'm here for it. Sarah says Graham needs a knighthood. I don't think so. I mean, I think what he needs is a slap. A demeaning slap around the chops. Not just like a little slap, not a cheeky slap, a demeaning pimp slap in the street in front of his close friends and family. Zero says Josh who? Do you know what? I don't know his surname because he's saved on everything for me is like Josh Movement Forward. Maybe I can find his name quickly. Hold on. Josh Movement Forward. Josh Russell, his name is. But honestly, the best way to find him is to look for the Movement Forward. So on Twitter, it's at MVTFWT. I think on Instagram, he's Josh FWD. Need to have a catch up with him really at some point, because like the whole thing with the tactical voting was obviously to get the Tories out. And the Tories have been out for like 5 months or whatever it's been. And I don't think I'm alone in feeling like there is some urgency to start seeing some hope, some boldness, something a bit more ambitious and radical. And I know there's a limit. I want to be realistic as to what Starmer or Labour can do. But I don't think that what we're seeing at the moment is sufficient to win people over. I don't know how many times I need to say it. I think he needs to regulate the press. But I think it needs to be done in a really smart way. Like, he needs to look at what other European countries do. He needs to see what's regulated in America. Would be a good one. I know that America is, you know, pretty wild in their media as well. But if there's some parallels that he can sort of draw from other countries, just so then you got the recourse to say, like, look, other countries do this. This isn't me like being some sort of authoritarian dictator against free speech. You can still say the things that you want. They just have to be true. You can't be going on the front page of the Telegraph talking about two-tier policing because 2 coppers turned up at your door because you posted something that was actually racially inciting people just after the English riots that was untrue, and you called other people racist. It was warranted. You should have got the knock on the door, Alison Pearson. You can't go on a broadsheet and say that's two-tier policing or start tapping into some conspiracy theory nonsense. What is wrong with you? So just stuff like that. Like if there's some parallel like in other countries, or just to be able to say like, look, foreign billionaires can't own UK press. They can't. It's not right. Like, I think, when did I see this? When was I exposed to this? This was, it was on a documentary, a sort of like iPlayer documentary about the history of news in the UK and tabloids and news of the world and stuff. And they were talking about the purchase of the Times, I think it was. So like Rupert Murdoch had already bought the Sun, I think, and then he went on to purchase the Times. And I think before that would have not been achievable because he already owned one title, he wanted to buy another one, and he actually did a deal with Margaret Thatcher. And Margaret Thatcher then told her minister for like media and press affairs or whatever, that it should be allowed, that he should basically greenlight it. And that is why Murdoch was able to then get his hands on 2 national newspapers. And I think from that, like that was the genesis of this sort of problem, is when you have people who control that much of the conversation and then they go on. I know he doesn't own Sky now. They don't have any really like executive footprint as Sky, but he did start Sky, right? He started Sky was it BSB or was it always Sky? I can't remember now. Like, how was he able to start a broadcast corporation in the UK and start broadcasting news when he already owned 2 newspapers? Like, it's too much. It's just too much power. So regulations around that sort of space, you could find other examples in Italy or France or Germany. Ideally, it would be somewhere like with slightly anglicized, like a New Zealand or an Australia or an America or Canada. Just so then you can sell it to the UK public and go like, look, other countries do this. We're the weird ones. It's us that's weird. Sorry, I've gone off at a right tangent there. I've had this idea in my head recently about like the Greens, about what it would take for Labour MPs to defect to the Greens, because they've just been elected, right? So they know they've got a salary coming for the next 4.5 years. They know that they're safe. That's them and their families taken care of. I don't like the idea of somebody being elected as a Labour candidate and then defecting, and then well, what the fuck? Like, I thought I was voting for a Labour candidate, but actually then you defect and then now I've got a Green. That doesn't seem fair. I don't like that idea. But in the interest of like the national interest and pushing Labour leftward, applying pressure, I do wonder like if that's the route that we need to go. Like, is get 10 or 15, because there's only 10 or 15 Tory MPs that were originally talking about defecting to UKIP. That was enough to push David Cameron into agreeing to that referendum. So if you had 10 to 15 Labour MPs stagnated every other week, another one defects to the Greens to get that policy moved across, like that would, I think that would get us on the right path to start seeing press reg, to start seeing PR, because it's not going to happen unless we apply some sort of pressure. And to just circle this back to Josh from the movement forward, I need to catch up with him at some point and find out like what leverage do we actually have and what lines of communication do we have in now, because it's fairly well documented the impact that tactical voting had. There's a lot of people, or there's a lot of seats that the Tories won because Tory voters stayed home, and then there's a lot of seats that that Labour won because the Tory voters stayed home. You know what I mean? And there's also a lot of seats that Labour won because Reform split that vote. But after 4.5 years of Labour, a lot of the Tory voters will come back out. And if it carries on as lacklustre as this, there will be a lot of Labour voters who don't come out. So it will be the flip reverse. So if you could apply the pressure now, if the Green Party, if the Labour Party MPs defected to the Greens now and pushed the policy portfolio to the left now, then potentially you nip that problem in the bud. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on Australia imprisoning the unvaccinated and those who contracted COVID during the pandemic? I'm not familiar with it. Shall I have a look? Imprisoning the unvaccinated. Let's have a look. Australia prison unvaccinated. Is this a thing? Is this a real story, or am I? Will the unvaccinated in Australia be fined up to $13,000 or face 6 months for offences such as sneezing or coughing in public? The claim. Oh, this is old, right? Yeah, this feels old to me. Let me just see if... what about if I just put Australia unvaccinated? Yeah, there's nothing recent here about unvaccinated people going to prison, so I'm not sure about that. I mean, my personal feeling about vaccines is that I think that they are bloody marvellous, and you know, there's a century of success behind them, and I trust people who are endlessly smarter than I am. And if the cheerleaders for avoiding them happen to be chancers that sit on all of the usual panels and news desks and editorial rooms, I'm going to go with my gut and say that, you know, I'll believe the scientists over the people who were wrong about pretty much everything else. Australia should get independence from those lizards, says Bullywags. Jim Speaks says children need to take their medicine. Yes, they do, Jim. I gave my son his medicine earlier and he loved it. So there you go. Proof positive that the entire vaccine ecosystem works. Bullywags, just going back to my point a minute ago. Bullywags says, it disappoints me that Starmer is singing from the same hymn book now on taking it on immigrants. But I understand why Starmer is using such cheap tactics. I mean, the thing is with him is that he is playing politics by, as you suggest there, but like a conservative hymn book. He's playing it on their terms. If he just said, I don't talk to the Express, I'm not talking to the Sun, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll rein you in. Regulators are coming, so just chill out. If he refused to engage with tabloid Britain, I think that would be initially pretty bad, but also I think it would be really brave and bold. It would be like, I'm not playing politics on the terms and conditions of the Conservative Party. I didn't sign up to them. That's not what we're about. We're about governance. We're not about slogans, culture war, nonsense, immigrant bashing. We're about economics, stats, facts, and actually making this shit work. Like, that's what he should do. But you're right. Like, what he's actually doing is, you know, softly, tiptoe over here. Oh, I better come over here and then do a speech about how, you know, we're not going to let too many immigrants in. Then I better go over here and write a story, a blog that they'll put in the Sun and the Telegraph. And I'll try and keep the centre-right happy. And then I'll try and do... And this whole time, he's just hoping that the centre left will just stick it out and just put up with it. And they just won't. Like, it's as depressing as it is predictable and definite, for want of a better word. Like, people will just get fed up. His approval rating, or disapproval rating, sorry, is 61% now. Zero says, Kemi and Aid have doppelganger teeth. Well, that's just cold. You know, here I was earlier saying, like, you know, I don't need to be bigged up. You know, I'm okay. That's actually quite mean, and that's cut me deep. Zero. But also, it's inaccurate. You know, we're talking about facts and stats and reality here. And, you know, I don't say this about a lot of people, but I think I prefer my teeth to hers. So, make of that what you will. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, so his disapproval rating. So, yeah, people just won't hang about. They'll just get fed up. Maybe he'll get switched out as a leader closer to the next election. But yeah, it is my hope that one way or the other, Labour are dragged leftward and we actually start to see some real change, because otherwise, I've said this before, I think this government, this 4.5-year parliament, this will actually just end up being a very, very brief window of all the corruption and decline. Like, that's how I see it. It's like Labour majority, stonking Labour majority, where you have a chance to actually affect change and do something good and reset the country and get it back on the straight and narrow. And instead, it's just like, oh, I don't want to piss off the Mail. Oh, I don't want to piss off the Telegraph. Yeah, I better bash immigrants for a little bit, and just tide it out. He's just going to wait and wait and wait until he gets kicked out in 4.5 years, and then he'll be like, right, okay, time to write a book. Like, that's how I see this thing happening. Like, there's so much urgency to actually changing shit. And it just feels like he's like, well, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, there's no money for that. Yeah, well, no, we won't let any more than 100,000 in. Yeah, we're going to shut this one down. Yeah, and that one. And no, there's no money for hospitals. And yes, we might bash some trans kids. And like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just Tory light and scaredy sort of tiptoeing eggshell politics. I think people are too desperate to just cling on, hoping that at some point in the next 4.5 years he might find his fucking balls. Like, I think that's the mentality of a lot of Britain at the moment. Aid, come on the show tonight, says Graham. I can't, man. Like, I tell you this every time. Like, I love Politics Social, and I love you, Gray. You lovely bastard. But it's just too late for me. It's like 9:30 start. I'm in bed at 9:30. I'm in bed at like 10 past 9 most nights. I'm a boring old bastard. I'm up at like 5, man, and it's just a long ass day for me. No, because if he's saying just come on for 15 minutes. If I come on for 15 minutes, one of two things will happen. I will either fall asleep or I will stay on for like an hour, and then I'll just really regret it tomorrow. And I have to, like, I'm really enjoying, like, so where I've jacked in the booze this year, it's, you know, I'm enjoying being full of life and energetic for my kids at the moment. Like, I sat in my daughter's bedroom earlier. This is going to sound insufferable. I sat in my daughter's bedroom earlier, and we just played with her little Teletubby thingies, and a little Frozen doll. We just played with them and pretended that they were, like, you know, sort of playing together. Just played for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and it was great. It was so sweet and wholesome, and I never used to do shit like that when I was hungover and tired and, you know, or clucking for a beer, or and a lot of that is just, I think, down to sleeping better, and so I have to be a bit disciplined about it. Aid's an old fart, says Liebshin. Yes, I am. But you know what? Like, part of being an old fart and some of you who are of the same or similar vintage to myself, part of being an old fart, the best part, is that you actually don't care. And you quite like being an old fart. It's like when you're younger, you like being a bit raucous, a bit reckless, a bit cool. I don't give a fuck, you know? You like that because that's a thing associated with being young, with youth, with being rude, not obeying the rules. When you're an old fart, to begin with, it's scary. But then as you become more of an old fart, you actually like the parts about being an old fart in the same way or the inverse way. See, we're circling back now to like opposite world, aren't we? I was talking about, you know, flipping and pivoting and opposites of a stag weekend earlier. It's like the opposite of being young. It's like I like being an old fart in my pajamas, my slippers, in the house, waking up early, making a coffee. So yeah. Zero says, good on you, Aid. Thank you, man. Zero says, does Aid have a proper job? Yes, I do. I have spoken about my work before, I think. I don't talk about it like loads because it's nothing to do with politics. So, but yeah, basically a few years ago, I retrained. So I used to work in like recruitment and projects and stuff, and then I retrained. I got up at, like, basically when my son was born. I didn't have any time to myself, and I was immediately broke, like many, you know, young families are, because traditionally the mum falls out of the workforce and finds it difficult to get back into work. And so we were pretty hard up, and we were just living off my salary, and my salary wasn't really enough. But I had this opportunity at work to like retrain, so I did like front end development, like coding, and I got up every morning. This is going to sound really like self-fillatey and, you know, life coachy, but I got up most mornings about 4 a.m. and did tutorials and built things and tried to build things and fucked it up and broke stuff and fixed it again, like coding. And I taught myself loads in like 6 months. And then I moved into a front end dev. Leapshin says, what are you, in your 80s or your 40s? I'm in my 40s, bruh. But I like being in my 40s. When I was in my 20s, I don't know how everyone else feels, but like when I was in my 20s, I don't remember being that happy all the time. I was quite... Why have I got a thumb up? That's weird. If I do that, does it do more thumbs? Hello? No? Okay. It's JavaScript, Zero, in answer to your question. What the fuck was I talking about? Can't remember. 40s and 80s? Oh yeah, moving into your 30s and being depressed in your 20s. Like in your teens and your 20s, like a lot of fun stuff does happen, but I was pretty insecure in my 20s. And I'm not really sure I had much cause to be proud of myself at that point, or like any real belief that I could. I don't know, I just wasn't really particularly in a good place, I don't think, throughout my 20s. And then in my 30s, I started doing stand-up and I taught myself to code, and both of those things were like really like buoying. Like I actually taught myself how to do shit. Like I've actually got quite a good brain. My brain can actually learn and absorb and sponge, and so I felt, I don't know, and then I became a father, and now I'm 44, and I'm probably the happiest that I've ever been at 44, even if I don't sound like it when I'm ranting and, you know, taking the piss. Politically, I'm hugely depressed. But emotionally, you know, familially, I'm in a pretty good place, I think. Let's see. I've got a couple more minutes, and I'm going to go in check on the kids. Zero says nothing wrong with a bit of self-fellatio. It would change the vibe of the podcast though a bit, wouldn't it? Like get through 45 minutes of ranting, do a weird news story, and then pull down my pants and suck my own dick. People would be like, "Whoa, this is taking a turn." Yeah, this is. I was not expecting the self-fellatio. That came out of nowhere. Okay, right. I'm gonna run. I've just noticed the time basically, and I said I would come in at 9. So, thank you so much, guys, for sticking around. I will be back. As I said earlier, I'll be back Monday with an alternative paper review. Probably won't be a midweek episode of the podcast next week, but there will be one next Friday night. So, if you are still on here now, in the chat, etc., go and check out Politics Social, Graham's Friday night live stream, much like this one, but with lots more people on it. He starts that at 9:30, so if you just type in Politics Social into YouTube, you will no doubt be directed straight to him. Yeah, I'll be back next week. Take care of yourselves. Keep it booge. Keep it influencer. And we are out this motherfucker like your dad's balls. Like your dad's balls with 3 baked potatoes shoved up your ass. Good night.